Hey guys, this is Mike with Unique Wealth Education, and today we have a author on our podcast who has really built up his portfolio throughout the years, one rental at a time. No point intended, as that's the name of his book, and he has been very successful in building up close to 200 doors, and he has done it by being a technology worker and building that up throughout the years. But I'm going to let him explain a lot to the audience on how he got started and some of the tips that he has for you guys. So, Michael Zuber, welcome to the podcast, and thank you for being on.
Thank you, Mike. It's always fun to be on and speak with you. Our interview on my channel was a lot of fun. I appreciate it.
Thank you, thank you. So, Michael, tell us, how did you get started? What was, I know I mentioned a little bit about you got started with building up rentals throughout the years, but how did you get started?
This story begins, frankly, on my 30th birthday, which is roughly 2 decades ago. I got to that age. I don't know why, but it was one of those numbers where I had to really go check myself. And I realized that I'd wasted my 20s. I'd made okay money, bought some toys, but got to my 30th birthday and realized that, I was running really, really hard. I was spending it as soon as it came in. And frankly, I was being an idiot. So I knew that when I looked above myself in my org chart, right, there's people 2, 3 levels above me. They were at the time, 10 or 20 years older than I was. But what I was looking for is I was going, are they happy? Are they healthy? Do I want to be them? And universally, the answer was no, right? They looked to be out of shape. They looked to be on their second or third marriages. They were, chemically dependent on something. And, the life of a software salesperson is hard. And I knew that I couldn't do it forever, and frankly didn't want to do it if that was the end result, was that unhealthy lifestyle. So I said, okay, well, I'm going to do this because I'm good at it, but I need to do something else to bring financial freedom. So I went to a bookstore. Yes, they still had them there when I was 30. And I remember walking around this huge warehouse full of books and sort of, gravitating to real estate. And I must have bought 15 or 20 books that first weekend, right? Bought 10, went back, bought 10 more. And I just dove in. And, real estate was real. I had been burned in the stock market in my 20s and wasn't going to touch that again. And at the end of the day, I gravitated towards buy and hold rentals, specifically houses in the beginning, because that's all I knew, right? Where was I raised? In a house. So what did I buy? I bought a house. There's a long journey there, right, where we wasted a year looking in the Silicon Valley and all that stuff. But ultimately, I knew on my 30th birthday that I had to do something to control my future, and I didn't want to leave it in the hands of someone else. And I didn't want the lifestyle of the people above me in the org chart. So real estate was my answer, and that's where I started to focus. I still did my day job, right? I did my day job for 15 years, all
Sure.
in, right? I was committed. But I did buy one rental at a time, and ultimately that grew to a portfolio that allowed me to leave at 45, which was pretty cool. So.
Well, that's quite inspiring because a lot of people, dream about financial freedom. They dream about having passive income. They dream about living life on their terms, and that's so important that a lot of people don't know how to take that first step and go towards that. And I commend you on, being that person who's seen a vision of, my path to financial freedom is going to be, rental homes. And real estate obviously is, one of the key factors in the world in which people use, for financial freedom, as 90% plus of the world's millionaires are made from real estate. And I look at it with you. You built it, like the book says, one rental at a time. So that's quite unique. Now, I know that you mentioned, we were talking earlier, and it's pretty unique that you not only own single family homes, but you also own apartments. And I often talk to people, and I say, they're just in apartments, or they're just in single family homes, so, or I'll talk to syndicators, which, only go after apartments because they're going after bigger deals. So, tell me, what do you like with single family homes versus apartments? What's your favorite? What's the difference? I mean,
Yeah.
would you prefer one over the other?
Yeah, so I'll sort of give you the history because the answer kind of evolves. One of the things that you'll see in the book, and as you know, Mike, the market cycle in real estate's real, right? It goes up and down, and it's not even everywhere. So when I started, kind of the first 8 years, it was all houses because that's all I knew, right? I already
Sure.
mentioned I lived in a house, so I bought a house, right?
Right.
In the first 7 purchases, one of those was a duplex, but frankly, it was 2 houses on one lot. So to me, they were still houses, right?
Right.
And then 2008, 2009 comes along, and this is right before the crash. And we're looking to buy our ninth unit or our ninth house, and nothing makes sense. Like what do I mean by that is that first house we bought for 107 back in '03 is now we sold for 265, but it rented for the same 1100. So it made financial sense when I bought it. It made no financial sense when I sold it. But what I did there is going to a local RIA, right? Talking to a mentor. They recommended, hey, have you ever looked at commercial? And again, I'm an idiot at this point. I think commercial is like storefronts and like where, like where all my bookstores are, right? I don't know
Sure.
what it is. And he's like, no, that's 5 units and above, commercial financing apartments. I'm like, I didn't even know that was a thing. Can I buy those? Right? Don't you have to be a millionaire or a billionaire to buy those? I don't know what's going on. He's like, no, you idiot. go look for units between 5 and 20. So I did. And lo and behold, we did a 1031 exchange. We sold that first house for 263 and moved the equity into a 5-unit building for 223. The
Oh,
punchline
wow.
is we had no new equity and the rent went from 1100 to 3 grand and it
Wow.
was $40,000 cheaper. So I'm a simple man, right? I'm not very bright, but if some is good, more is better. So we sold all of our houses for ridiculous prices and moved into apartments. So we went from having 7 or 8 houses to having 80 units in apartments in about a year and a half, all via 1031. Then the
Wow.
crash happens, right? And what goes on sale first? Houses. So we jump back in the houses. We still have that portfolio of 80 units, but we're buying houses for land value. And then what happens at the tail end of housing crashing is there's actually apartments that had bad commercial financing that blow up. So we start buying apartments again, some for zero down, which is crazy. And then it returns. So I buy what's on sale. And today I have a simple spreadsheet that I call yield because I try to turn every asset into a bond. And I buy whatever's the best number, right? So it might be a 1 bedroom, 1 bath house bought for nothing, or it could be a 20 unit apartment building that needs a value add. So everything to me is a yield. I am not picky. I put everything through the same spreadsheet and it tells me what the best deal is.
So, what I'm hearing here is really unique because you take what the market gives you. I always say this: you change with the times. You don't let the times change you, and
Mm-hmm.
you're taking advantage of the opportunities at hand. So, I respect that. That's what I do too. I buy single family homes. That's the majority of my business. But when I come across great apartment complexes for the right prices,
Yeah.
I buy them. And also, if I come across notes for the right price, I buy them. So,
Yeah.
that's important. I feel that's diversification.
Mhm.
Some people like to focus on one asset class, but for me, I look at it like, you know, there's so much similarity. There's not that much difference in handling them. Maybe in mortgage notes, sure, you got the legalities of it and you got timing and whatnot. But to
Mhm.
me, I am open to, doing the extra work that you have to do on them, and also, being, using a multi-pronged approach towards getting the results I want of high returns and,
Mhm.
building wealth. So that's
Yeah.
really interesting, and I respect you for doing that. So, you built this rental portfolio, which is phenomenal. You got close to 200 units,
Mhm.
and you're in single family and apartments.
Mhm.
So you're diversified there. Then you also mentioned that you buy and renovate and sell turnkey
Mhm.
homes to investors. So you go after tired landlords. You probably take that home, turn around, fix it up, get it up to code, get the rents up, and then
Mhm.
turn around and sell it to landlords. So talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so a couple of things. So first off, I did none of that while I had a full-time job. I think that's important for people to understand, right? When I was a 60-hour-a-week employee, my number one focus was being very good at my job. And when you have a job, a day job, you can't be a flipper or a wholesaler, right? The people that try to sing that
Right.
song are lying to you, right? It is its own job. So I didn't do that. However, when you retire and time is yours, you suddenly wake up and you've got, well, what am I doing today? Right. When you're used to running really, really fast, you've got to do something. So I picked up flipping, and I like to be different. So what I did is I didn't chase what everybody was chasing, right? Everybody wants to flip to owner occupants and FHA buyers and all of that stuff. I'm like, no, right? I don't want to do that. What I want to do is I want to take very tired properties that probably are a year or two away from being condemned, right? They're just bad. And I want to invest 40 to 100 grand in bringing these things back to life. And then I want to stick a tenant in at market. And then I want to sell to a landlord, right? I want to create and sell the stuff that I should have bought 15 years ago, right? I got enamored 15 years ago buying cheap. And unfortunately, cheap was not a good deal, because not only did I have to put the down payment, which was 10 or 20%, but I then had to, more often than not, put more into make ready, which just crushed my yield. And I didn't understand that for a decade. So realizing that I made such a horrific mistake 15 years ago, I said, hey, why don't I try to fix that for new landlords that have busy jobs like me, and
Right.
produce stuff that cash flows the day they buy it? Because again, I take all the risk. I buy it on my dime. I fix it on my dime. I fill it up before I sell it. And then everybody knows the numbers when it's sold, right? It's not a vacant property.
Sure.
So I get a pretty good kick out of that. I've helped, I think we've done 10 or 12 deals already since I've left, meaning the full round trip. And everybody likes them, right? They get a guaranteed, or they get a fixed yield because it's already rented, or leased. They can run their own numbers. And most importantly, they've been renovated, right? There's granite, there's undermount sinks, there's hardwood floors, there's
I
paint,
love it.
it's just, everything's done, right? So 5 years of, knock on wood, limited repairs. So I enjoy that. And it's fun.
I love that strategy. That's something that my company was founded on, and I've done thousands of turnkey rentals, and if we pick it up from a landlord, and there's deferred maintenance. What I generally do is I wait for the tenant to live out the lease, or
Yep.
eventually they don't perform, and there has to be an eviction. And we go in there and we do a complete rehab, and new kitchen, granite. We make sure if there's hardwood floors in there, we finish the hardwood floors. We make sure we get up to city code, furnace, hot water tank, all that good stuff. So then what we do is we have now a passive investment. What you said, like for 5 years, you shouldn't have any issues on deferred maintenance and whatnot. And that's where the value of what you're doing and what I do too brings a lot of value to passive investors. And then they
Absolutely.
could invest passively and not be an active investor like you are, or myself right now, which is totally a full-time job of 60 or 70 plus hours a week. So
Easy,
I
yeah.
got that. So interesting. You build this portfolio up. You're now, I call you a turnkey developer. Even if you do 15 homes a year or whatever you do, it's still turnkey development, which is great. And then you also have your podcast, which you do on a regular basis. And tell me, what's your podcast message is pretty cool, because a lot of people are in your situation, are in your situation that you were in previously, and that's wanting to build up passive income. And I think it's unique for someone that really has gone that route in yourself, to be able to educate people on how to get to that point. Me personally, I started out right out of college, where I jumped into business during college, actually, in a construction company. And I finished college having a company, and I started with $0, but that construction company got me going. And I've only ever had 3 internships in college. So I don't have the experience that you have working full time and having a career and having that desire to eventually build, financial freedom. I built it from a company, and then later on I said, you know what, I want to build passive income. So, you come from a different angle. So talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So one of the big things for me, so I retire February 1st of 2018. I spend the first couple of days, I look like Joker and Batman, right? This huge smile on my face. I mean, I smiled so much my face hurt, if that makes sense. But then I went into a pretty I don't know, nasty funk because I was like, well, what are you doing? I'm still getting up before 6 a.m. without an alarm clock. I'm just wired that way. And I spend 6 weeks getting increasingly depressed, right? I'm not value add. I'm not part of the system. My ego is built up in my job. And I had a choice. I was probably days away from getting a job just to be contributing, or I had to find something else. And again, it was sort of sitting around, taking a walk with the dogs or talking to Olivia, my wife. And, that's where the one rental at a time story came from. And as you sort of said, it was that notion that there wasn't anyone out there with a message of been there, done that, I understand you, to the busy professional, that yes, you can do this, right? In the book, I actually talk about if you just get to 4 rentals, your life fundamentally changes, right? As you get closer to retirement, 4 rentals paid off would be just huge for most people. And, so that's what I did. I made a decision that I was going to spend 90 days going after one rental at a time. I envisioned a book, which took longer to create than I thought, but it's out there now on Amazon. But where I focused first was creating a YouTube channel from scratch called One Rental at a Time. I was sporadically putting content out. That now has become a daily activity. I try to post every day at 6 a.m. And, I'm just trying to help, right? And my goal, I have 2 goals for the rest of my life. One is to create content that outlives me by 100 years. Hence, YouTube is great because it doesn't disappear when I die. The book was written under the umbrella of, hey, I want somebody to read this in 50 years and still be valuable, because it talks about market cycles and all these things that will be going on long after I'm dead. So that's the first thing. And the other one is I want to help 1,000 people start to buy their first one. There's just too many people stuck on zero. So I have a particular interest in trying to spark people off zero. And I just released a ridiculously cheap online course for $99. It gives you all the stuff that I did in the beginning, your homework, your deal spreadsheet, all of that stuff, because too many people are stuck on zero, and that's just a shame. So, I want to create content that outlives me by 100 years and help 1,000 people start. That's what I'm doing.
Well, Michael, I think you're doing a fabulous job of that. You really are. You're getting your message out there. Your book is phenomenal. So you're doing a great job of that. And I also think, listening to you, that you made a great choice by, it's hard to, you're a young man still, and you're retired. So I think that, you could have went out there and got another technology job and went and had a great career at another company. But, I think that you going back into it and now creating rentals for others is great too, because you know what to look for. And it's also really part of your, ecosystem of companies anyways. So, I think that's a great thing. So,
Thank you.
Do you? So that's awesome. Do you do your own property management? How do you property manage your properties?
No, so that's one of the things. So I chose a market, Fresno, that's 2.5 hours away from me one way. So I've had a property manager since day one. Since I had that first house on Norris Drive, we've had a property manager. That's a story in and of itself. We had to hire and fire, 3 or 4 different property managers those first 5 years before we locked into one.
Yep. Very hard to find a good property manager. That's one thing I will tell the listeners that, and Michael, I'm sorry to jump in here for a second, but property management is key to success in rental homes in any market that you're in. If you have the right property manager, they will do multiple things. Number one, they will make sure you get screened and qualified tenants. There's a screening mechanism to do that, to make sure you're going to get someone who's qualified to afford the rent, someone that doesn't have an evictions on their record, someone that has previous landlord references, someone that has decent credit, someone that has the security deposit to put down, someone that has the first month's rent to put down, so they qualify that tenant. But outside of that, a property manager does a lot more. And to me, there's 2 huge factors in what a property manager does. And that's number one, they communicate. They have really good communication with their clients. And their clients are not only the clients agents that own the property, but also the tenants, because a tenant is a client. You treat both clients right, you're going to have a lot of success, and that's through communication. Then another very important factor is getting the monthly rent out to the owner, from the tenant to the owner. So when I say that, it's very important to have the right property manager. They have to also have systems, processes, procedures. So if I ever, I have properties, and I used to have properties in 5 different states, Michigan being one of them, and 4 other states too. I haven't found a good property manager, and now I know what to look for after after having trouble with some of them. And you got to go to their office. You got to look at their systems, processes, procedures, meet their people, see how they do things. Take a look at their lease agreement. Take a look at their property management agreement that you're going to have with them. Those are very important things to look for. But then ultimately it boils down to, you could have processes, policies, procedures, systems, but it boils down to the people that are going to use those, and that's very important. So I recommend for anyone that's listening to this call, and you're going to listen to Michael a little bit more here, that a property manager is key to success in rental homes, apartments, whatever you may do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's no question. Once you lock into a property manager that treats you right, it's frankly a lifesaver, right? I could not have grown my portfolio to the size it was doing my day job, right? I literally spent over 100 nights in hotels and did 200,000 miles on airplanes, right? So I just don't have the time. There's a couple of things, Mike, that I took away from our interview that I just want to highlight. One is you focused on the tenants being clients. That's unique, right? When you talk about tenants being a client, you're going to serve them well, and they're going to stay. The other thing that you take away from listening to a guy like Mike talk about this is, you need to focus on not only getting rid of the bad ones, which does happen, life events happen to everyone, but you also need to make the good ones feel very special. Because here's the deal, right? My average tenancy for a house is over 5 years, and my average tenancy for an apartment is just over 2 years. And once we've started focusing on trying to reward the good tenants, hey, you paid 12 months in a row on time with no issues. Great. Let us come in and, we'll change the carpet in your bedroom, or, some little small thing. These little small things, you'd be amazed if you can keep the good ones, a year longer by just doing something you would have done anyway. Everybody wins. So that's an important thing to think about.
I love that, Michael. So actually, like we said, the tenants are our clients. Mm-hmm. And, some tips that we've used throughout the years, a lot of tenants sometimes, or potential tenants, will fill out an application and they're not qualified, and they'll end up getting upset. And really it's we're going off of data, and that's what we have to do to make sure that our homes perform the best they can perform. And, sometimes someone will get upset and will say, I'll tell the office, I'll say, guys, if that's the situation, give them back their application fee, because there is an application fee. When we go through CoreLogic or whatever it may be, they charge $21, $22, $23. And when we're charging $25, we're not making anything off of it. But if someone, is upset about it, we say, hey, listen, we don't want no hard feelings. Our goal is to, locate good tenants. But when you have really good tenants and you build that rapport with them, to me, you can do a lot of things for them. Number one, you could have education courses on how to build their credit. Bring in a credit repair company and maybe get them in the mindset of, in the future, becoming a homeowner. There's nothing wrong with that. That's very important. I think that let them have that mindset. We want them to be successful. If they could eventually not be our tenant and go become a homeowner, I'll be happy with that, because I helped someone out, to become a homeowner. Number two, I also talk about, tenants learning how to become a homeowner through courses. A lot of a lot of people don't know what it takes about having insurance on a house, and paying the mortgage on time, and being qualified for the bank to give you a mortgage. So that's important. So we offer those kind of things in the form of not only content that we email out, but also courses. I have a conference room in our office that fits about 50 people.
Nice.
And we invite tenants to come in here. You could do a lunch and learn, and that builds a rapport. It shows that we care about them, which we do care about them, and I want every person that comes in touch with our company any way possible to be successful. And I truly do, whether it be knowledge in real estate. I have 20 years experience in real estate, and have done thousands of deals. And or if it's tenants that live in our homes, any way we can help and give back, to me, is very important part of the whole entire cycle. And we also have little tips that we do at month number 9. We contact our tenants. We try to get them on a 2-year lease, which a lot of our tenants are on. And my average tenancy is probably 3.5 years, I would say. But we try when the lease is coming up 3 months prior, we're calling them and talking to them, and we're saying, hey, would you like to renew? And if you have a really good tenant, get them a furniture set. There's affordable furniture sets that they might want. Get them if they want a new fridge. To me, that's building a relationship. And the cost is so minuscule when you think about the overall relationship that you built there, and the longevity that a tenant's going to have in that home. So I think that's very important little tips that landlords can use, and professionals can use. And it helps you too, because you don't have tenant turn costs either. So it's very important. One last thing that we've done is we've implemented a response protocol for tenants and owners, where we built out a system where it goes in a queue, and calls got to be responded within 1 day, or emails got to be responded within 1 day. That builds a relationship right there. They see that someone's responding, they care, and then there's different levels of maintenance. I mean, if someone's furnace or hot water tank is out, that's the highest level. That really is. Stuff in that category is very important. You have a doorknob broken on a door, we'll get out there within 3 days, but they even want that fixed, and rightfully so. They're renting the house; they should have that fixed. Now, if they broke it because they pulled on it too hard or whatever it may be, we also don't pick at that. We don't say, hey, you have to pay for that. We're not that type of property management company. We're the type of property management company that builds a relationship, and then what will happen is the tenant will reciprocate, and when they reciprocate, it's a long-term relationship. They're paying their rent, and there's really a good relationship all around there. So that's just some tips for the listeners there that I've experienced, and I know, Michael, you have too, owning all those rentals yourself.
Well said. I like it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Let me ask you, what's the biggest learning curve that you've learned being a landlord for almost 200 units? And doing this passively and now full time. So if I would say the biggest learning curve you've learned being a passive landlord, and then the biggest learning curve you've learned by being an active landlord.
Yeah. So the biggest learning curve for me, again, it all boils down to mistakes. There was kind of two. One is I thought the answer, because I was a data guy, right? I was a technology guy. I've lived in the Silicon Valley my whole life. So I thought the answer was technology. What I meant by that is I thought I could solve the real estate investing riddle by beating on it with Excel spreadsheets and online technologies and all of that. And frankly, I was lying to myself, right? Real estate investing is a people business, right? You've got to network, and you should have a goal of meeting 2 to 3 new people a week kind of thing. And I spent 8 to 10 years just deep in technology, right? Excel. I had the most complicated Excel spreadsheet alive, which I've now deleted and thrown away because it was complete waste. It should be simple, right? So the first thing is get out of your comfort zone, get off your computer and go meet people, which was hard for me, right? I was in different countries doing this. But I could send email, I could send texts, I could make phone calls. And sure, I had to get up earlier, stay up later, whatever it was. But if you really want to get into this business, you've got to go meet people. You've got to go to local RIA meetings. You've just got to be in it, because what happens when your network triples your size today or quadruples, deals come your way, right? In a few hours, I'm heading to Fresno as an example. And one thing is we're selling a couple of things this week, which is great, right? Money shows up. But also I'm buying a bunch of stuff. I'm buying 15 units, seven different properties from one owner via owner financing. So that's happening today. Where I'm going to look at a fire burned house that an agent called me on and said, hey, you bought my other junker, come buy this one. So it's a pocket listing. And then we're going to go look at 3 deals that a wholesaler bought me that, because, hey, you buy stuff, they're all on the same street. Do you want all 3 houses at one time? Right. This is all network stuff. I don't mail postcards. I don't cold call. I don't robo dial. I don't pay people all of this. I just meet people and tell them what I'm looking for. And that was the biggest mistake. If I would have grown my network those first 8 years, I would be even bigger today. And then the second mistake is I didn't understand or appreciate the value of cash. And what I meant by that is I bought cheap, and I mentioned I'm trying to fix this for others. But again, I bought a house, just use round numbers, for $100,000 that was maybe worth 150, but I had to put 30 in, right? So I was under the misgivings that, hey, I just created 20K in equity. Aren't I lucky? Well, idiot, you just burned 50 grand and now you can't buy something else, right? 20 grand to the down payment and 30 grand to the repairs. Sure, my net worth may look better, but I freaking have no cash to buy the next deal. I've learned a couple of lessons the hard way, and I'm trying to
How do you
help
combat that? So I want the listeners to know, how do you combat that so that doesn't happen?
Yeah, well, what I should have done is I should have bought the 150K house that didn't need any repairs, right? So if I put 20% down on a 150, I put 30K
There you
down.
go. There you go.
Instead of the 100K with 30K in repairs. So
and you could go buy another home with that money that you put in there. So
exactly.
There you go.
Good.
I just wanted to make sure that was clear that, really real estate is really a business of an investment of calculation, making the right moves. Mm-hmm. And Michael, your moves, like that mistake you made, which is great, taught you a lot. So now you're going to make a lot of money from that mistake because it's not in vain. So that's a good tip for the audience, to learn from.
Yeah, and especially today, right, Michael? I mean, the interest rates today are low. They just came down 0.5%. So if you can lock in a beautiful property that's already rented at market and cash flows the day you close, why wouldn't you put cheap, 4x or 5x% interest on a 30-year loan? You'd be silly not to.
Right? Absolutely. So, Michael, this conversation has been incredible. And, I know your book, incredible book. I recommend people to go on Amazon, buy the book. I think it's well worth it. Great reading. Like Michael said, he's a genuine person. He actually wants his information that he has in the book and his experiences and to outlive him. So to me, that's a giver, and I really respect that, and I appreciate that because that helps our listeners out, helps me out, helps a lot of people that I could refer to your book out. So that's huge. So I appreciate that. So it's one rental at a time. It's on Amazon. Mm-hmm. But I also want to close out with this, Michael. Mm-hmm. What would you recommend for a new real estate investor just getting started, or an existing real estate investor wanting to build their business further, to do? What would some of the steps and the main points be from you for them to learn or increase their knowledge?
Yeah, so I think there's, when I created that course for new investors, that was the riddle I had to solve. So I think there's essentially 4 steps, and I'll just go through them, how they're in the course. Step 1 is you got to be able to do your own homework. You may rely on others to bring you deals and bring you price points and all of that. But if you haven't done your base homework on your market, how do you know it's a good deal, right? I knew investors back in 03 to 08 that said, hey, I see what you're doing in Fresno. I'm going to go down there for a weekend and buy some stuff, right? That's how hot the market was in 07 and 08. But that's a mistake. How do you know? If you look at 3 houses, how do you know which one's the best deal, right? I mean, it's crazy to me. So step 1 is you got to do your homework. And you do that by getting really tight on your focus. Step two is you got to know your numbers, right? You got to be able to do a simple calculation. You got to understand how much you're putting down, what's your make ready costs, closing costs, all of that, and how hard is your money working, right? What's the return, right? You put 50K down, how much do you get back? So I call that yield. So that's step two. Step three is you need to be able to manage your team, right? You're a busy full-time employee. So we talk about team. Property manager, we've already hit on, is the priority number one for a guy like me, right? Because I can't do it. I don't have the time, don't want to. But there's other team members, there's mentors, there's real estate agents, there's RIA meetings, all of that. And then step four is you really got to talk about your why, your goals, and do a self-assessment, right? Everybody brings something to the table, but what do you bring, right? What did I bring? I bought almost no cash. I had like 40 grand. Then I had no time. So what did I do? I focused on being really good at my day jobs because I was commission based. And then I focused on finding deals, right? And then I hired everything else out. GCs, property manager, everything else was outsourced because I didn't have time. So those are the four things that I document. I layer through the course. But that's what I recommend people do, even if you're just starting out. Do you know your homework? Do you know your numbers? Do you know your team? And then, what are your goals going forward? So,
Michael, when you built up this large portfolio,
mm-hmm.
and so you'd find the home, get the GC. Would you refinance it out and go buy another one? Was that your strategy throughout the course of what you did?
What's called BRRRR these days.
Yes.
I did that a bunch during the crash. So from like 2010 through 2015-ish, because things were on sale. So yeah, I would buy them for basically land value, fix them up, and then refi out. And that's how we kept buying, right? We didn't put in new capital. We just kept recycling old capital.
Where did you get the first capital to start out with?
We refied one of the one of the apartment buildings, which had almost no debt on it because we 1031 all the money from earlier. Right?
Exactly.
So commercial lending didn't stop. Residential lending stopped. So we refied an apartment building to get that cash.
I want to point that out because basically what Michael did to the audience is pull out his money by refinancing it and you put it into other real estate assets, and that's how he grew. That's how you're growing your portfolio. That's huge. Well, I just want to leave here with one tip from myself that I heard you talking about. Networking. It is huge. It's huge whether you're in real estate, whatever business you're in, just in general life. I think what networking is an incredible asset that we could all take advantage of and utilize to build ourselves up and get to know a lot of people, get to know who we could work with, how we can mutually benefit. And one thing that I've been doing actually since I would say the mid 2000s or even before, when the Blackberries were around. I think I had a Blackberry at that time.
I remember those days.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I would do is I would always take notes on everyone I met. And I'll put little keywords in there. The date I met them, are they a realtor, a wholesaler? What city do they work in? Where did I meet them? And those keywords I can search, and if I want to go through and text a bunch of wholesalers back then, now you have mass texting, all these things. But I still do the same thing with my iPhone nowadays. Nice. If I meet someone, I take their card, I put all their information in, and I'm gonna be up to 10,000 plus contacts that I met. And one of the important things I want to mention is I make it a goal every week to have met, at minimum 3 to 5 people. Today I have someone coming in, and they're local. Gonna meet them. Always invite them. Come in, have lunch. Let's sit down. Let's talk. Let's see how we can do business. My office, constantly, has people coming in to, do tours of our office. Whether they want property management or if they're looking to buy properties or if they're looking for whatever services my other companies that I own offer. But I make sure to get everyone's information and capture it because data is very important. and building relationships with people is very important, and that can be done not only face to face, which is key. I think that's the biggest way to network, but also putting out their content, putting out their good content, letting people know that you have information, you want to give it to them, you want to pass on the information. I don't need to hold the information close like this and rock it. What's it going to do for me? To me, if I could give it out there and have people learn from it and build from it, to me, I'm building bridges. So part of my success I look at is the way I define success is how many bridges can I build? And that's by networking and meeting people and establishing that trusting relationship.
Well, that's why you're very successful.
Well, thank you very much, Michael. Michael, it's been an honor having you on the podcast. I appreciate you taking your time out. And again, I recommend the listeners to go out to go on Amazon and buy your book one rental at a time. They'll learn a lot, and hopefully, all the stories that I've been hearing from people reading the book have been incredible, and I've read your book too. So, I really look forward to your book growing and growing, and a lot of people benefiting from it. So, thank you very much, Michael, and have a great day. We'll talk to you soon.